Recurring illness. I'm writing this many years after those days of recurring illnesses. It's based on what actually happened during my journey in India in 1972. The statements are based on reality, but some of them are a little bit fictional by other characters that I name. It starts off with Keith, my companion on travelling from the UK to India. Keith said, Kabul was a lovely city with friendly yet strange people, and hardly a local woman to be seen without a full burqa. But it was filthy. They had little care for hygiene. The water provided on the tables of restaurants was dodgy. Even bottled water could not be guaranteed clean, and often may have been from the tap, while salads were washed in tap water. Fruit was not washed at all. We saw donkeys shitting in the street next to open stalls, cooking and selling food, fruit or bread. We were advised to be careful when eating with a wet fork or spoon, or when drinking in a cafe, for fear of hepatitis or other sicknesses. As far as the opium den went, well, it was the pits. We had 2 pipes and left, hoping that we would not be ill later. It was nothing like the clean opium farm we had stayed in 3 days in Iran. Alun. Peshawar was one of the filthiest places I ever had to go to and stay in. Eating was almost anything with a risk. We were lucky to be taken to the secret restaurant run by Swiss hippies, which was clean with good food and dope. Our hotel was dirty with an open toilet on the roof. There were a lot of sick people in the Peshawar hotels and many drug addicts. Alun. The train ride from Delhi to Hardwar took many hours. The carriages were crowded and dirty, and the stink from the unflushable toilet was sickening. I had very little money left, so ate what was available at the many stations where we stopped. Dal and chapati or samosas, spicy, milky, sweet tea and biscuits or sweet cakes. Lots of bottled water, although I wondered if they were simply refilled from the tap. It was a very uncomfortable journey, and as soon as I reached Hardwar and was off the train, with the crowds wandering off to do whatever they do, I spotted a bench on the platform and stretched out and slept for the first time in 48 hours. Mercifully, nobody disturbed me or robbed me. Next morning, I bought a cheap breakfast and headed off to cross the River Ganges. Alun in Hardwar, India. I had awoken early and took a breakfast of spicy chai, porridge and eggs on toast. I wasn't too keen on the porridge. It was slimy and too sweet. Then I made my way across the bridge to the other side of the Ganges, one of the main holy rivers of India. It is said that to drink the waters of the Ganges is to purify the soul. So I strolled along the riverside, and eventually I spotted a group of young men sitting around an orange-robed elder. They called them Babas, or holy men, sadhus, and they smoked chillums of hashish dedicated to the god Shiva. He shouted and waved me over. On such a hot day, sitting in the shade of a tree smoking a chillum was appealing enough, alongside a possible dip in the river. So I went over and sat with them. They lit and passed me a chillum. Then I gave them a couple of rupees and we smoked another chillum. I said my thanks and carried on walking down beside the river, but soon was invited to smoke another chillum with a different group. By now I was very high. I took a quick dip in the Ganges, but slipped my foot in and quickly found myself going under the water. It was very hot that day. I panicked a little bit. The water was moving rapidly and I got a mouthful. By luck or grace, I managed to pull myself out and clamber up the steps. I was soon sipping weak fruit juice with another babber and smoking more chillums. This babber asked me why I'd come to Haldwar. "To meet you," I said, and we both laughed loudly. He asked if I would like chai and said that soon the Mahatma would pass by and take me for tea. After drinking a strange tasting chai, I went back to the station to rest on my bench, intending to accept the Mahatma's invitation to his ashram. Then I got sick. I pooped onto the station platform and managed to get then into the toilet, where I emptied my bowels. It was the beginning and the end, the beginning of an illness and the end to my outwards journey. Maybe it was cleansing. A sadhu by the river Ganges in Haldwar. Translation. We were sitting in the shade of a holy tree and smoking chillums of the holy herb when I saw a thin and bedraggled Western man with long hair walking beside the holy river Ganges. I watched as he slowly stepped down into the rushing waters and he disappeared beneath them briefly. After he had pulled himself out and was walking closer, I called to him to come to us. I invited him to smoke with us the holy herb. I asked him why he had come to the city of Haridwar, and he said to me, "To be with you, to meet you." We laughed. We shared a drink of water from the river. A short while later, he left with the Mahatmaji from the ashram of Premnagar, the place of the holy Guru Santji Maharaj. I never saw the young Western man again. Alun. After several chillums beside the Ganges and a brief dip, I met a Mahatma and was invited to stay at an ashram. I drank some tea and returned to my sleeping bench at the train station in Haridwar. I became sick and never made it to the ashram. The illness was to start for weeks and reoccur. I often wondered if it was something I drank or just karma. The Mahatma took me to a chai house and ordered a cup of tea for me. He invited me to join the Aarti procession through the Haridwar early evening and said that afterwards, if I wished, I could go and stay in the ashram. He left without paying for the chai, telling the waiter that it was a bakshish and not to ask me to pay. The waiter, or tea house owner, did not seem to be happy with that. The chai tasted strange, but it was a hot day, so I drank it down fast. Afterwards, I went back to a bench at a railway station where I had spent the previous night. I thought to relax until the evening parade. On the way, I bought some fruit juice and sweet cakes. It was not long afterwards I began to vomit, and soon I had diarrhoea, so I never made it to the ashram. Mahatma in Haridwar. Translation. I was walking alongside the river with a group of Remis on our way back to the ashram. A local babba called to me, and there I met a young man from the UK. As were many young men who visited the city, he was long-haired and quite dirty. We took him to a chai shop where I ordered a drink of chai for him, telling that he should not be charged any money. The owner was not pleased but served the chai. I invited him to join our Aarti parade that evening and to stay at our ashram. Then we left. I never saw that young man again. Chai shop owner, Haridwar. Translation. The dirty hippie man that Mahatmaji brought into the chai shop by the bridge in Haridwar did not look well. He was hot and I think he had been smoking charas. We did not speak the same language, but I wanted to help him, and I wanted to tell him to go to the doctor. I could only give him chai with extra sugar and milk. Then he went off, and I never saw him another time. Alan. I sipped fruit juice on my way back to the railway bridge bench where I had slept. I think it was that made me puke. I had been quite stoned on chillums that day, so being sick was doubly unpleasant. Station Master, Hardware, translation. The young man from England had slept on the platform bench. In the morning he left. He came back again late that afternoon and returned to the bench. I decided to let him rest there. After a while I saw him being sick over a platform onto the tracks, and then he rushed into a latrine. That was at the end of my working day, so I went home and prayed for him. The God never showed me that man again. I do not know what happened to him. The sickness here can quickly kill people from the West. Hospital worker, Delhi. My job is a ward orderly in New Delhi Hospital. Sometimes we have to care for sick Europeans. Sometimes they have no money or are drug addicts. This young man from the UK was admitted to the ward. It was clear he was very ill. He was very thin with long hair and had no money. But I could see he was not a drug addict. I made friends with him and helped him by giving him extra food, dal, vegetables and chapati. He was in the hospital for about a week, then released. I know he was still ill. I remember his name was Al and he wore a fedora hat. Embassy official, Delhi. Alan was in hospital in Delhi with no money, according to a phone call. My job at the embassy was to visit people in the situation, to see how we could help. They did not seem to be looking after him well, but he had no money, and for when he left the hospital, I loaned him £10. Diane, Al's companion, Delhi to Kabul. I was wandering about New Delhi with little purpose and no money when I spotted Al sitting on a wall. He was long-haired and bearded and looked friendly enough, smiling as I approached him. I introduced myself and he invited me to sit beside him. I explained that I had come to India over a year ago with my boyfriend, but when I got pregnant, he left. I told Al that I'd had an abortion and was now penniless and hungry. He told me that he had been ill with hepatitis A and dysentery, and that he had been in hospital in Delhi. Well, he did look quite ill, very skinny and worn. He said he was just 22, and I was just 20. Al said that he could not give me money, but I was welcome to share his fat-free meal at the Chinese restaurant that he was sitting waiting for me opposite. That evening, and for many weeks to come, we shared food. That night we lay together in the local park, but he could not get close as he said he did not want to risk giving me hepatitis. After a few days, he received a few pounds from England, about a week's wage there, but it should last many weeks here. Al wanted to get me back to the UK with him overland, and he agreed to take me with him. Actually, I just wanted to get back to Kabul. We took the train to Amritsar, then buses through Pakistan to Islamabad and Rawalpindi. They were two cities, new and old, right next to each other. We stayed in a cheap hotel in Rawalpindi. The hotel was as dirty as the streets. I had to take a bus to the new city of Islamabad through the British Embassy to pick up some money that my parents had sent. Then we took buses to Peshawar and then through the Khyber Pass to Kabul. The money went quick, though we'd been in Kabul for about a week or so, and then he started getting sick again. One day he couldn't stand up, So I took him to a hospital and they kept him there. I visited a few days later and he looked so much better, but he did not know when they planned to release him. So I asked the taxi driver, and he said, translated, that the only doctor there that spoke only English was away until the weekend, so we're keeping Al until then. Al said that they were feeding him on soggy rice and black tea. He came back to our hotel a few days later. He was not happy when I told him I'd given most of the money away to a French woman whose husband was locked up in the prison, and I lost my passport. Al wanted to leave Kabul as soon as he could, and he said he thought he'd die there if he stayed. So he helped me get a new passport and himself went to the embassy for help. He managed to get some money from his parents sent out, but when I got the new passport, they wanted me to have to go back through the Khyber Pass to the border with Pakistan to get an entry stamp, or they would not let me out of Afghanistan. That was stupid to me, to have to pay for 2 bus rides when I thought they should be able to do it in the post. We argued about that a lot. We had a weird trip on acid then, when it seemed to bring us closer together, but we still argued the next day. Al said that if I would not go to get an entry stamp, he would catch a bus alone to go west. I didn't really care, as I was not going back to England yet. So one night he said that the next morning he would either go back to the border with me or go to the west alone. He gave me half his money and he left. I never saw him again. An English traveller in Kabul. I was staying at the same hotel in Kabul. He got more and more ill. I know he was being sick a lot, getting dehydrated and hardly eating. Then one day I heard that he had been taken to a hospital and they kept him there for about a week. I was still at the hotel when he got back. He still wasn't very well, but able to walk. When they took him in, he could hardly stand up. A lot of people get sick on their journey through Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India and Nepal. I must be one of the lucky ones. Alan. The bus ride from Kabul to Tehran took 5 days, changing places and buses several times, sleeping and eating in the cheapest places I could find, having to drink tap water. I got sick a few times, but I did arrive in Tehran, dirty, hungry and ill. Alan. I thought I'd been lucky to get out of Afghanistan alive. I'd been ill for months, and now, after a 3-day bus journey from Kabul, I found myself sitting in the street. My head was spinning and I could hardly walk. I'd been vomiting again throughout the night and unable to keep even water down for long. I was dehydrated again and I still had little money. Nobody seemed to want to help me for a while. Then a man asked me if I needed help. After telling him I was English and wanted to get to the embassy, he helped me to the busy street and dusty street corner and pointed me down another street filled with various vehicles and people, saying it was the American embassy. I slowly walked to the entrance and discovered, in fact, it was the UK embassy, after all. Then I remembered I was in Tehran, on my way home. The embassy was closed, and the costume guard at the gate at first would not let me in, but I insisted, entered a large room and lay out on an open bench, saying that it was UK and I would stay there until I saw an official. That is how I was taken to the Tehran hospital. I was treated well over a week of my stay there, put back on my feet, and afterwards the embassy guy took me back to a hotel to get my bags, and next day took me to the airport, from where I flew to Heathrow. Unfortunately, just in the previous 2 hospitals, they did not cure me. An Iranian man in Tehran. I saw a young man with very long hair sitting in a busy street in my hometown of Tehran. He looked as if he needed help, so I spoke to him. He asked me to show him to the UK embassy. I knew it was round the corner in another big street, so I took him there. In fact, it was the UK embassy, so I left him there and he went inside. I don't know more than that. British Embassy official in Tehran. The young hippie man was stretched out on a bench in reception at the embassy when I arrived. Although the embassy was closed that day, he had, I was told, insisted that he be allowed inside, and it was the UK territory and he was British. He was quite correct. He told me his name and explained that he was travelling back from India after becoming ill there with dysentery and hepatitis of the infectious kind. He did look very ill. He told me that he had been in hospital in Delhi and Kabul. He had run out of money, but some had been sent to the British Embassy in Kabul. But instead of using it to fly back to the UK, he had left most of it at the embassy and tried to go all the way home by road. So he had been several days travelling, and he had not booked, but he had booked into a hotel in Tehran. The morning he had set off to the American Express offices, where he hoped he could pick up some money, which was waiting for him. I decided to take him directly to the Tehran General Hospital, where we admitted him immediately. Then I made arrangements to transform him back to the hotel and collect his baggage, and then to the airport to fly back to Heathrow 1 week later. I know that what has happened, but apart from that I don't know. We get quite a few poor travellers coming from India or Afghanistan with little money and poor health that need the help to get home. In this case, it was the man's parents that paid. Often it is the country itself. Then we must take their passports when they arrive back in the UK until they repay the transport costs. Alun. When I was admitted into the hotel in Wales, they took away my Iranian medication and ignored my diet of no fried food or salads. As a vegetarian then, I had to eat salad and chips twice a day until their test results came in, after which they reinstated my diet and fed me better. They kept me there 1 week and loaded me up with pills. Apparently I had a bacteria that came from dirty water. The end.